Have you ever made a decision you thought was right, only to find out later it wasn't what you expected at all? At 83, I've lived through many ups and downs, but nothing surprised me more than what happened after I moved into a nursing home. It felt like the right choice at the time. My kids said it would be easier for everyone. The staff promised I'd have all the care and comfort I needed. I believed them because I trusted them. But once I moved in, I realized life in a nursing home isn't as simple or easy as it looks from the outside. If you or someone you love is thinking about moving into a nursing home, I hope my story will help you understand what it's really like. Because it's not just a new address, it's a whole new way of living. And it's not always what you expect. I want to share with you 5 important truths I wish I'd known before I moved in. These truths changed the way I see my life and the choices I made, and they might help you too. This decision is more than just choosing a place to live. It's about deciding what you're willing to give up and what you want to hold on to. It's about understanding the changes that come with leaving the life you've built and stepping into a system that runs on its own schedule. So if you're thinking about a nursing home or know someone who is, please stay with me. These stories might just make all the difference. Let's get started. The biggest shock after moving into a nursing home is realizing that I had lost control over my own life. Before I moved into a nursing home, I had little routines that made me feel like myself. I decided when to wake up in the morning, what to have for breakfast, and how I'd spend my afternoons. If I wanted to sit on the porch with a cup of coffee, I did. If I felt like baking cookies for my grandkids, I'd do that too. But the day I moved in, I realized I wasn't just moving into a new building. I was stepping into a life run by someone else's clock. Suddenly, everything was on a schedule that wasn't mine. Breakfast was served at 7:30 sharp, even if I wasn't hungry yet. Bath time came at 10, whether I preferred it later in the day or not. Even going outside for some fresh air required asking permission, and sometimes waiting until a staff member was available to help. Even the simple act of choosing what to wear felt different, because they'd often lay out my clothes for me the night before. I'll never forget that first morning. I woke up and reached for the book I'd been reading back home, but it wasn't there. My cozy chair, the one I'd spent years in, was gone, replaced by a generic recliner. That's when it hit me. I wasn't living my life anymore. I was living by their rules. You learn to adapt because you have to. You get used to being told when to eat, when to shower, and when to stay in your room. Slowly, you stop asking for the little things that make life feel like your own. If you're thinking about this move, ask yourself, are you ready to trade your freedom for convenience? Because once you hand over control, getting it back is a lot harder than you'd think. The next truth I realized is that loneliness can find you in the most crowded places, even when you're surrounded by people. When my children helped me move into the nursing home, they promised they'd visit often, and at first they did. My daughter would stop by after work to share stories about the grandkids. My son called every Saturday to check on me. During those first weeks, I felt reassured that even though I'd moved to a new place, I'd still be part of their lives. But as time went on, things started to change. The calls became less frequent. Visits felt hurried, squeezed in between errands or work meetings. Even holidays, which I had looked forward to, became days of broken promises. I'd sit by the window hoping to see a familiar face, but often no one came. The hardest part wasn't the silence. It was realizing that the world outside continued without me. My neighbors went on with their lives. Friends drifted away. Even my family seemed to adjust to my absence. I'd see their photos on Facebook, birthday parties, school concerts, backyard barbecues, and I wasn't there. It felt like no one even noticed. In a nursing home, loneliness doesn't always come from being alone. It comes from feeling left behind. I've seen other residents wait by the front door, hoping a loved one would show up. I've watched them glance at their phones, wondering why no one's calling, and I realized I was doing the same thing. If you're thinking about moving into a nursing home, ask yourself, can you handle the feeling of being left out? Because even with kind staff and friendly neighbors, loneliness can find you. And it's a kind of loneliness that goes deeper than simply being by yourself. It's the kind that makes you feel like you've been forgotten. The next truth I learned is that purpose is easy to lose and hard to get back. At home, I had all these little things that gave my days meaning. I'd water my garden, make breakfast, just the way I liked it, and fold laundry while the news played in the background. I didn't think much about how important those simple routines were until they were gone. In the nursing home, everything is done for you. Meals come on a tray at set times. Laundry is whisked away and comes back folded neatly. Even my medications were handed to me each morning. No need to remember or plan. At first, it felt like a luxury, a nice break from the chores I'd carried for decades. But after a while, I started feeling like a guest in my own life. The days stretched on, long and empty, filled with waiting for the next meal or the next scheduled activity. I'd find myself watching the clock, hoping something would happen that would make me feel like I still mattered. I met a man named Walter, who'd spent his whole life fixing cars. Back home, he was always in his garage, tinkering, building, making something out of nothing. But here, there was no garage, no cars to fix, no tools, no sense of accomplishment. I watched him every day sitting in his wheelchair, staring at the wall, his hands idle and restless. "I just want to feel useful," he told me one morning. I knew exactly what he meant. Without a reason to get up in the morning, your spirit starts to fade. Days blur together when there's nothing to work toward. That sense of purpose, the thing that made life feel rich and meaningful, can slip away before you even realize it's happening. If you're thinking about moving into a nursing home, ask yourself, what keeps you going? Because in a place where everything is done for you, finding purpose takes more than just filling the hours. It means fighting to hold on to the parts of yourself that make you feel alive. One of the things I didn't fully consider before moving into a nursing home was just how quickly your body can slow down, sometimes even faster than I'd expect. Before I moved in, I took pride in staying active. I wasn't running marathons, but I took daily walks, made my own meals, and tended to my flowers. Those small movements, stepping outside to feel the sun on my face, bending down to pick a weed, kept me strong in ways I didn't even realize. But in the nursing home, everything was made easier for me. Meals were delivered to my room. Staff were always there to help me stand, sit, even tie my shoes. At first, it felt like a relief, a chance to rest these old bones. But pretty soon, I realized that the less I did for myself, the less I could do. I started losing strength faster than I expected. Standing up from my chair felt harder. My legs stiffened from sitting too long. Even lifting a cup of coffee felt heavier. And it wasn't just me. I watched neighbors who'd arrived with a spring in their step slowly trade their walkers for wheelchairs. I met a woman named Elsie who, like me, loved her independence. Every morning she'd walk laps around the courtyard, determined to stay strong. But after a few months, she started asking for help. First for the stairs, then for her laundry. One day she looked at me with tears in her eyes and said, "I feel like I've aged 10 years in just a few months." And I knew exactly how she felt. In a place designed to make life easier, it's easy to forget that your body needs challenge. To stay strong, it's tempting to let others help with every little thing, but every time you let go of one small task, you give up a little bit of strength. If you're thinking about a nursing home, ask yourself, will you have the motivation to keep moving when everything is done for you? Because once you slow down, getting back up is harder than you might think. One of the hardest and most painful truths I've faced is that coming home isn't always as simple as leaving. And I regret not realizing that sooner. When I first moved into the nursing home, I told myself it didn't have to be permanent. I thought I'd give it a try for a little while, see how it felt. And if I didn't like it, I could always go back home. I even packed lightly, thinking I'd be back to my own kitchen, my own bed, my own garden in no time. But I didn't realize just how hard it would be to actually leave once I was here. My house sat empty for months, and what were once small repairs, like a loose step or a leaky faucet, turned into big problems that needed more than just a quick fix. The longer it sat empty, the harder it felt to even think about returning. My kids, trying to help, started sorting through my things, deciding what I wouldn't need anymore. They meant well, but it stung to see my life packed away in boxes. Every time I brought up the idea of going home, they'd look at me with that worried look. Are you sure you're strong enough? Wouldn't it be safer to stay here where you have help? And deep down, I wondered the same thing. Because after months of living in a place where everything was done for me, I wasn't as strong on my feet. I didn't feel as confident cooking for myself or carrying groceries up the stairs. Even the thought of driving felt overwhelming. The very help that made life easier here also made me dependent in ways I hadn't expected. And every day that passed, the idea of managing on my own felt further and further out of reach. I started to wonder, would I even recognize my home? After being away for so long, I met others in the same boat. Some had sold their homes, believing they wouldn't need them anymore. Others had spent so much on care that their savings were gone. And before they knew it, the option to go home simply wasn't there anymore. That's the part no one tells you. Moving in might feel like a trial run, but for many of us it becomes permanent. Not because we want it that way, but because leaving is so much harder than we expected. I used to think I could just pack my bags and walk back into my old life. But life doesn't work like that. When you've lived by someone else's schedule for so long, when meals arrive on a tray, when staff are always there to help, it's easy to lose the confidence you need to stand on your own 2 feet. If you're thinking about moving into a nursing home, ask yourself, will you be able to leave if you decide you want to? Because once you're here, the barriers, financial, physical, and emotional, can be harder to overcome than you might think. Looking back, I don't regret the life I've lived. I've had wonderful moments and memories, but I do wish I'd known these truths before I made the decision to move in. Nursing homes can be a lifeline for people who truly need them, and for some, they're the best option. But they can also be a place where you slowly lose pieces of yourself that you didn't even know you'd miss. Before you make this decision, think carefully about what you're giving up. Your independence, your sense of purpose, your feeling of home. They're worth fighting for, even if it's hard. If you found this story helpful, please share your thoughts in the comments below. What stood out to you the most? Have you or someone you love gone through this experience? Your voice matters to me and to others who are facing the same decision. And if you haven't yet, please subscribe to ElderlyFit Daily for more honest conversations about aging, independence, and living life to the fullest. Thank you for being here. I'm grateful for you.